What I'm going to show you in this lesson is how to apply color to a photograph using blending modes. For this module's assignment, what you guys have to do is recreate Newton's 12-step color wheel, which you can see right here on the left. On the right, I have a nice high-resolution image of some piano keys. Now, while you guys have to recreate all 12 steps, I'm only going to be demonstrating a few. So for yours, be sure you do all 12. First thing I need to do is kind of create a selection for myself so I know where I want to apply the color. I'm going to use a polygonal lasso tool because this creates straight edges, which is great for these piano keys. I'm just going to outline one of those keys. And I've created the selection. Now I want to make a new layer, and I'm just going to call it red because that's the color I'll be applying. And then using the paint bucket tool, which might be behind the gradient tool, you can flip back and forth, and the way you do that is just by holding down and then just letting go on whichever tool you want to use. So with that new layer selected, I'm going to use the paint bucket tool and just click on it, and it'll drop that color in. And I'm going to deselect it by hitting Control D or going to select and then deselect. So now I have this new layer with the red on it, but it doesn't really look that nice, right? It doesn't really look that believable. So what I can do is the blending modes are accessible right here below the word layers and next to the word opacity. And you can see there's a lot of options here. And I'm not going to go through every single one because there's no way you're going to remember it just by me going through each one individually. Because what it's doing is pretty technical. I think the better way to do this, especially at the stage you guys are at, is just click on this so it's highlighted and you can start flipping through it, right? The importance of this assignment is to recreate the colors. So what I want to do is find one that's a close match. So I'm kind of like an overlay because it keeps some of the it lets some of the highlights shine through, and it keeps all that nice wood grain in there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to save that there. But what I want to also show you guys how to do is, as you can see, like the contrast is pretty high here. So another thing you can do to kind of go in and tweak this a little bit. I'm going to zoom in. I showed you a couple lessons ago how to create layer masks. So if I want to take the selection, I'm going to hit Control and I'm going to click on it. And it's going to reselect that area. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an adjustment layer, right? And you do that right here. And I'm going to do hue saturation. Okay? So what that's going to do, since I have it between the color layer and the background layer, is it's going to only adjust what's below it, which happens to be the high resolution image, but only in the area that I created. As you can see, the layer mask appears right here. So if I hit if I hit Alt, you can see where that layer mask is, and I can hit Alt again and click on it, and it'll take me back. So what I'm trying to do is make these highlights a little less harsh. So now, with that hue saturation layer selected, I can start to mess with the underlying color, right? So if I darken it just a little bit, you can say that that color, that highlight isn't as harsh. And I can turn that image adjustment layer on and off. And I would go ahead and do this for each color just to make it look nice. So let's try another color. So I'm gonna make one more selection here. Again, I'm doing this a little fast for the sake of time. Alright, I want to make a new one. And let's do green. So get the eyedropper tool, select the green, switch over to the paint bucket. Let's rename this so there's no confusion. And I'm going to drop that in. And since I already have that selection there, I'm going to go ahead and make another adjustment layer. And hue saturation. And now remember, I want to have this below the color, right? So if I change, since I'm using an adjustment layer with a mask, it's only going to affect any image or any layers below it in that specific area. So if I go ahead and change this oops, let's change this to, we had that one at overlay, so let's try overlay again, right? And we got the same kind of issue that those whites are a little harsh. So I'm going to go back to that hue saturation layer, and I'm just going to start messing with it. So you can see when I make the adjustment, it's only affecting that layer, right? So there you have it. I mean, there's two pretty solid looking keys. It looks like I got a little bit over there, so I'm just going to go ahead and select the area around it again with the polygonal tool and go to that layer and just hit delete, and that'll make a nice clean edge there. So there's two keys, and these are, you know, using these blending modes is really taking advantage of what Photoshop can do. Being more of an illustrator, you know, there's some other ways that I use this. So let's open up. I have, oops. Sorry, I opened up Bridge. And I'm going to go to File, Open, and this image of a Ford Mustang, right? Now what I'm going to do is first I'm going to unlock this layer by just double clicking on it and just hitting OK, and that'll unlock the layer. So I'm just going to call that layer with the drawing, I'll call this the ink, and I'm just going to call this bottom layer color. So two ones that I tend to use a lot with drawing is multiply and screen. What multiply does is I'm going to select the ink layer and I'm going to change it to multiply. It doesn't look like much of a change, right? But if I go to the color layer below it and I start to paint, let's make my brush size a little bit bigger. Right? And I start painting on it, you can see that it keeps, what it does is it actually grabs any of the white from that layer and makes it transparent, right? So it makes it very useful for like coloring, like when I do comic book pages and whatnot, or illustrations. It helps to preserve the line work. The opposite of this is screen. So if I'm going to click on that, what that does is it makes anything that's black transparent. So as you can see, it's coloring, it's basically treating anything that's black on that layer as kind of a cutout, right? So if I turn that on and off, you can see that it's only affecting that area. So again, you know, using the blending modes is really going to take advantage of Photoshop layers, which is really where the power of Photoshop is. So by all means, experiment and play with it. And I think that's the best way, rather than hit you guys with a bunch of technical descriptions of what, you know, these blending modes are actually doing. Just kind of get in there and get a feel for them yourself.